Hi everybody, my name is Rachel, I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, Greg, for inviting me and for introducing me. This is going to make me a little bit nervous. I'm afraid I'm going to knock it over. Anyways, it's good to be here tonight, and I guess I'll just start in the beginning with the first time that I took a drink. The first time I drank, I didn't get drunk, but it was important for a couple of different reasons. I think I was in the 7th grade, and I was with a friend of mine named Kelly. We were at her house. Her parents were asleep, and we were mixing up what we could. I think there was, like a little bit of wine, some Sprite, and some Kool-Aid. And like I said, I didn't get drunk, but it was important because I had always wanted to drink. I thought that drinking and alcohol meant being grown up. It meant being sophisticated. It was like Hollywood and being in the movies. And I envisioned myself as a movie star, with a boa and one of those long cigarettes in 7th grade. My grandparents would have parties and everybody would get together and they would laugh and have a good time. In our little concoction, it had bubbles, and so we were glamorous. The second reason that first drink was significant is because of who I took that drink with. Like I said, I took it with my friend Kelly. And this was in the 7th grade, and Kelly was the first person who I felt like really liked me for me. We had moved around a lot. I was in 7th grade, so obviously I had had friends up until then, but I never really thought that my friends liked me very much. I thought that they let me come around with them because they felt sorry for me or because they wanted to make fun of me. I had a friend when we lived in Ohio, for example. She lived down the road from me, and in the mornings before school I would walk to her house and she would change my clothes. She would put makeup on me and she would do my hair, and then we would walk to school together. And I was always pretty sure that she wouldn't walk to school with me if I didn't let her do those things. But in AA, when I first got here, I heard people say that we're always comparing our insides to other people's outsides. And everybody else really, they looked like they knew what was going on. They looked like they had it together. And Kelly just didn't look like she had it together. And I feel shallow when I say it, but Kelly was born premature. She had a cleft palate, so she had some scarring. She had scoliosis, and she had to wear a brace. She had some acne, and she had really frizzy hair. And like I said, it does make me feel shallow, but here there's somebody who my insides matched her outsides, and she was the first person who I felt like really cared about me, that really liked me for me. She genuinely wanted me to be around. And so like I said, we were at her house in her kitchen, and she was swinging on her refrigerator door, and she said, "Oh, that last drink was a doozy." And so that's what we called our drinks. So we had doozies, and we were sophisticated and we were grown. And a few short months after that, my friend Kelly died unexpectedly. She had an aneurysm, and she was gone. And I was unable to process those feelings. I mean, quite literally, I hung up on 3 people that called to tell me that she passed away. I couldn't accept that. Her mom finally called me. And, I was supposed to babysit that night. The next day, obviously, I was supposed to go to school. And my mom was going to let me get out of that. And I told her, no, I can't. I've got to be responsible. I've got to keep my commitments, and I don't want to get behind in school. And that wasn't the truth. I'd been trying to get out of school since like 2nd grade. The thing is, I didn't want to be alone with those feelings. I didn't know what to do with them. I was going to come out of my own skin. And in truth, I didn't process those feelings of my friend's death until I was into sobriety. Anyway, so she passed away, and that took place in Florida. And not long after that, we moved here to North Carolina when I was right before I went into the 9th grade. And it was here in North Carolina that I took like the first drinks, the drinks that really counted, when I could actually feel the effects. I was with some guy friends of mine. One of them had a tree house, which I thought was really, really cool because I hated my mom and I thought that she was the root of all my problems. And this guy had a tree house, was like outside of where his parents were, and there was a TV and like a little space heater and stuff like that. And I just thought it was awesome. But we were drinking clear stuff, and I felt it, I felt what it talks about in the big book. I felt that sense of ease and comfort. I felt okay in my own skin. I felt like I could relax. And no longer did I feel like I didn't measure up. It wasn't that I didn't match your outsides. When I was drinking, I felt just as equal to you, if not better than you. And I could talk to people. I was funny. I was smart, all of that. And we ended up going a couple of places, getting kicked out of a couple of places, and these boys ended up jumping me off at my house because apparently I was kind of annoying. I don't know if you guys were when you were drunk, but I was. And, my mom, the person who I just thought that I hated, my mom, the reason I hated her is because she held me accountable for my actions. She wasn't going to she never let me get away with anything. And a friend of mine found out that I was at home and I was drunk, and she knew, my mom, and she knew I was going to get in trouble. So she picked me up and took me to a friend's house, so I wouldn't get in trouble for my drinking. And by the time I got to my girlfriend's house, I wasn't feeling ease and comfort anymore. I wasn't feeling okay in my own skin. I remember being on her floor in her bedroom, and the room was just spinning, and I was laying on the floor and I was crying and I was puking my guts up into this big pot. And my girlfriend, she was 16, so she was like experienced drinker, and she was like patting me on the forehead, and she was telling me, it's okay, you're going to be okay. And I said that alcoholic prayer, like, God, get me out of this, and I won't do it again. I promise I won't do this again. Just let me live. It was awful. And anyways, so her family, they all worked second shift, and then after work they go out to the bars, and then they came home and they'd be really loud and really rowdy. So several hours went by, and I got woke up by her family who came home. And, the insanity was with me that first night. I wasn't thinking, yeah, you said you weren't going to drink anymore. Remember how bad that was? Remember how you thought you were going to die? I remember that sense of ease and comfort. I remember feeling okay in my own skin. And so I drank again, and instantly I was like, well, I'm just not going to drink quite as much. And this time I'm going to have a full stomach. Last time all I had was some Skittles, and that's really probably what it was. So again, that insanity, that this time it's going to be different, that this time I'm going to be able to drink, that was with me right away from the beginning. And I was all of 14 years old, so I didn't drink every day, but I drank as often as I could. I drank as much as I could. And really quickly I started getting into trouble. That relationship with my mom obviously deteriorated. The relationship with my family, with my friends, deteriorated. If anybody questioned my drinking, I had to let them go. Alcohol made me feel okay. It was my answer. And when somebody was threatening that, I'm sorry, but that friendship wasn't as important, or wasn't as valuable to me as drinking was. Grades at school started to really decline, things like that. The same time I started drinking, I also met a boy. And there should have been bright flashing warning signs with this boy. There really should have been. The first time we hung out, he was skating downtown, and I was watching him skate, and eventually I got kind of bored, and I wandered into a bookstore for a while, and then I wandered back out to where he was, maybe a half hour or so later, and he grabbed me and he shook me, and he said, "Don't you know how scared I was? Somebody could have kidnapped you." And like I said, that should have really been a warning sign. I thought, though, how sweet, he really cares about me. He was worried about me. And I didn't know. I didn't know that he was going to be afraid of me hanging out with my friends, that something might happen to me. He was afraid of me going to school. He was afraid of me answering the telephone. And he didn't just stop by grabbing me and shaking me. It got pretty physical, and it got that way quickly. But, he was a boy that liked me, and I didn't think that anybody liked me. So it was him and alcohol were the solutions, I thought. Anyways, I guess I was about 16 years old, and it was on April Fool's Day. My mom had rented a van, and she was going to go upstate New York to go and get some furniture from some family who were moving. And she gave me the keys to this van, and she wanted me to load it up, and she was going to go do some errands. And this was my opportunity to get away from my mom, who I called her the warden. This was my opportunity to get away from the warden. And I convinced my boyfriend, all we've got to do is, take this, take that. We can pawn it, we can get on the road, and we can go in this van. And, we'd ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after. It didn't really work out that way. It wasn't very hard to... It wasn't hard to convince him. We took off, and we were gone for probably about 2 weeks. We ended up getting caught in West Texas. We were arrested. They didn't keep him because he wasn't wanted in Texas. They let him free. Kind of had a resentment against that, I guess. But they kept me. They put me in some juvenile center for a while, and my mom was going to come and get me. And I know my mom. My mom holds me accountable. And when she came, she flew out to Texas to pick me up, and she said, Rachel, when we get back home, I'm going to take you to Salisbury, and you're going to get arrested. We're going to go to the magistrate's office, and you're going to be arrested, and you're going to sit in jail. And, it was only 3 days to get back, but it was a really, really long drive home. That boyfriend came back with us because, he loved me. And when he got back to Salisbury, he had to get arrested too. So we were like both in jail, sending love notes through the guards and everything. It was really sweet. So I'm 16 years old and I'm sitting in jail. And, I was able to see real clearly where drinking was the root of all of this. Drinking was the root, or at least part of the root, with my relationship with my mom. Drinking was why I was getting in trouble with the law. It was why I was flunking out of school. I could see that drinking was a problem, and so I just wasn't going to drink anymore. And I thought that I had that power, And I remember this is the first time I had drunk dreams, and waking up and thinking, oh my God, thank goodness I'm still in jail. Who says that? Anyway, so I get out of jail, and like I said, my plan was just to quit drinking. This boyfriend and I, we had, he was older than me. I think he was probably like 3 or 4 years older than me, and I really thought he was going to take care of me because, he had been sleeping on couches for the last 4 years. But I remember sitting in, and this is just kind of like a comparison. Like when I was a kid, I wanted to travel. I wanted to do all kinds of stuff. I wanted to be Indiana Jones, okay? I wanted to go and dig up stuff and do archaeology. And now I'm in 10th grade. I'm sitting in my honors English class, and I'm trying to figure out, how much money is it going to take to get away from my mom? How am I going to, I'm thinking about, can I work in a gas station? Can I work at a grocery store? Because I wanted to go and live with this boy and raise a kid that he had from a previous relationship. And it's just, kind of very, very different, from when I was younger. But anyways, this was our plan. We were going to get a job, and I was going to go raise this kid and work at a gas station. It wasn't 2 weeks, it wasn't 3 weeks, I'm not sure how long it was, but I was with a girlfriend of mine, she passed me something and I took it. And that's it. There was, the strange mental blank spots. There was no thought about, you just got out of jail. There was no thought about this plan. Nothing. Not about the trouble that's going to happen. There was no thought whatsoever. And that boyfriend, he didn't make it very long either, trying to stay sober. And eventually, that boyfriend came and lived with us. My mom didn't know the things that was happening when she was at work. She didn't know the types of things that was happening when she was, asleep at night. So she let him come and move in with us. And one night, in a insane and drunken mess is what it was. He attacked me, and I don't remember it. And I assaulted my mom. I remember kind of taking my hands away from my mom and thinking, why are you looking at me like you're so afraid, And I ended up going to jail. And, when I got to jail, I couldn't say why I was there. I couldn't say I was in jail because, I tried to wrap a telephone cord around my mom's neck. I had some pretty serious lies that I made up. And when my mom came to see me, she had these marks on her neck that I had done, that I had put on her. And I'm so, so thankful that my mom never took my illness personally. I don't know how. I really don't know how, but she never thought, why am I doing this? Why are you doing this to me, Rachel? My mom always knew that alcoholism was an illness, and she always was on my side and trying to get me help. So I'm in jail the second time at 16 years old. This time I'm there for about 2 months. My mom works to get me into a treatment facility where, I loved it. I loved treatment. There was all these fancy words that made me look smart. There was some kind of, there was a pattern. And what I remember is this roller coaster and the spiral is what I remember. And I was on board 100%, I wasn't quite ready to say I was alcoholic, but because still I didn't know quite what that meant. But I knew that drinking was the problem. And I had so many opportunities. When I came home, my mom had arranged for me to get into a much smaller school with people who were going to be supportive. I had support of some really close friends and family members. My mom had even she called him a nanny. My mom had even gotten me a nanny because I was supposed to go to outpatient treatment when I got out of treatment, and I was supposed to go to AA meetings, but I didn't have a driver's license. So she got this nanny for me. My mom just didn't realize that he was addicted to crack. And so, I used my 50-cent words on him, and I talked to him about that roller coaster and about that spiral, and the focus was on him, and the focus wasn't on me anymore. And yeah, so I focused on him. And, I had when I was in treatment, I went to an AA meeting. I was in like the adolescent ward, so I'm sure it's kind of different than when you're a grown-up and you're in treatment. We didn't get to go to AA meetings in treatment, but like on my home pass, I went to an AA meeting and I got a big book. And then when I got out, I went to what would later be my home group, and I sat in what we now call the jump seat. I sat right by the steps. And I sat there and I bawled. I bawled the whole meeting. And I thought, this AA thing, everybody's so nice here. They were so nice. I was 16 and they were older. Anyways, so like I thought this AA thing was really nice and everything sounded good and you guys were nice. You were. But it would work for you because you're alcoholic. This wasn't going to work for me because I didn't know that I was an alcoholic. I just thought I was a bad person, I couldn't stop hurting the people I loved. I didn't have any willpower. I kept doing things that I didn't want to do. Like I didn't know, and so I didn't stay. I didn't stay here very long. And I can't tell you how long it took before I was drinking again, but it wasn't long, And my drinking after treatment, oh my gosh, like I want to squeeze the podium really, really hard to show you how white my knuckles can get, to show you like how much I tried not to be an alcoholic. Everything in that insanity chapter, I tried those things. I tried limiting this, rationing this, only drinking with these people, not drinking during this time, like mixing it with this and like I'm only going to drink this much. And then like I just couldn't, I couldn't do it, and I was 18 when I did finally sober up, and sometimes I could control my drinking, but not all the time. When I put alcohol into my body, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if this is going to be one of the nights that I can like drink 2 drinks and hang out with my boyfriend and his friends and be nice and be a lady, or if I drink and I'm starting fights and I'm hitting on people and I'm urinating on myself and I'm getting in trouble. I don't know what's going to happen to me. Anyways, the drinking got in the way. Again, it got in the way of my relationships, things like that. Got in the way of school again. I had a boyfriend and he didn't want to have a drunk for a girlfriend, and so I was always trying to quit. And like I said, always trying to limit my drinking, always trying different things, to drink normal. And the last night that I drank, nothing different happened. Nothing spectacular happened. When I put alcohol into my body, when I drank, that sense of ease and comfort didn't come. I didn't feel okay in my own skin, and I didn't know what to do. I mean, this had been my solution for years, and now it wasn't working. And I had a temper tantrum. Like, I knocked things over, I threw things, I screamed, and I hit. Eventually I passed out, and the boyfriend I had at the time, he had been going to AA. Like, I sought him out in a way because he was like bad, he was a bad drinker. And I thought like I'd never be as bad as him. And I had even like given him my big book. He had gotten in trouble, like he was always in trouble. And this time he was on probation and he had to go to AA meetings for something weird. Like there was TNT and Kool-Aid and some kind of seeds. And I'd given him my big book and he was going to AA, and now he said, Rachel, you need to go to AA. You're the one who has this problem. Because, that night that the drinking didn't work for me, he decided he was afraid. He didn't know what was wrong, and he decided to read my diary. And I don't know about you, but when I'm drinking, I tend to live in a way that's contrary to my values, And apparently they were contrary to his values as well. So he broke up with me. And my first day sober, it was February the 19th, 2000. And that's a miracle, I had been trying not to drink for a long time leading up to that point. And then after that point, I haven't had to take a drink. But I'll tell you, I wasn't planning on getting sober. I was just simply planning on getting that boyfriend back, And anyways, he said I needed to go to some AA meetings with him, and so I did. And I don't remember what they talked about at that first meeting. I don't have a clue. But they offered out the white chips, and I picked one up. I heard something that was hopeful. And I remember the girl who gave me my white chip. She was pretty. She was clean. She smelled good. She had clear skin. Her eyes were like white. They weren't yellow and they weren't red. When she smiled, it went cha-ching like that. Her hair was clean, and she looked genuinely happy. And I was none of those things. I wasn't happy. I wasn't clean. My teeth didn't go to nothing. Anyways, and she gave me my white chip. And she said, Rachel, if you put this chip in your mouth and it dissolves, then you can take a drink. And I kind of said, that's stupid, but okay, and so I started going to meetings. And when I was going to meetings with this guy, we got there at 7:58 and we left at 9:02, but I was there. And after a couple weeks, he went out of town and he said, Rachel, you need to keep going to these meetings. And I said, okay. So I kept going to meetings. And, there's suggestions. You're supposed to make friends, you got to go out for coffee after the meetings, go to dinner, all that good fellowship that takes place, get phone numbers. Well, I'm certainly not endorsing or encouraging or suggesting what I did, but there was a guy in the meeting, and so we went out after the meeting for dinner or something, and he came back to my house and we watched a movie, and he just didn't leave for almost 2 months. And like I said, I'm not suggesting it, okay? He had done AA before. He knew I was supposed to get to meetings early. He knew you were supposed to read the big book. He knew you were supposed to pray and meditate. And let me tell you, this guy, he was an artist, so he was really deep, right? And he would like read in the daily reflections, and he'd go sit outside or whatever, and he'd come back in and he'd say, Rachel, listen, I meditated about this, and this is what I understand now. And I was not going to be outdone by him. So I'd have to like read something and try to meditate about it, and then I'd go and tell him, well, this is what I got about this. And anyway, so that's how I got sober. I was following this boy around, but I learned a lot from that. After about 2 months or so, his mom came to get him, and he got accepted into like a treatment facility and some kind of long-term farm. And I remember when he left, I remember thinking like, it was early afternoon. I remember like, I have a choice, and I don't know what I'm going to do. Am I going to go and beg that ex-boyfriend to take me back and probably end up drinking? Am I going to never, ever, ever leave my house again, and maybe I'll stay sober, maybe I won't? Or am I going to give this AA thing a try? And I don't really know what that means. And for me in early sobriety, I needed to take a nap like all the time. So I took a nap. And when I woke up, it was 6 o'clock. And at 6 o'clock, you get up and you go to the basic group. And then you stayed for the 8 o'clock meeting. And I'm so, so thankful that I didn't have to make that decision. Because if that decision would have been mine to make, I wouldn't be here today. That's such a good example of God doing for me, So I'm giving this AA thing a shot. And I wanted to get a sponsor. And I had my eye on these two women because they had what I wanted. They were pretty and they were always laughing, and the boys liked him. That's what it really was. And I remember this guy, I just thought he was like the AA guru who had been sober since November the 5th, 1984. And he said it like at every meeting. So like he asked me if you got a sponsor. And I said, no, I've got my eye on one of these two women. I'm going to ask them. And he said, no, you're not. You're going to ask Valerie. Valerie's going to be your sponsor. And I was like, oh God, she's so different than I am. I was like quiet and she was loud. She had a lot of kids. I wasn't having any kids. Like, I don't know, she maybe had her GED, and I was flunking out of like community college, but I thought I was educated. I just thought we were so different. And, but I did what he told me to. So I asked her to be my sponsor, and, we were exactly alike, exactly alike. The way we felt on the inside, the way we drank, it was exactly alike. And, I was, like I said, I was 18 when I got here. And when I first got here, I wasn't entirely sure I was an alcoholic. And I'm really, really thankful that nobody told me you're an alcoholic. And if you don't do this is what's going to happen to you. Both the people in what would later be my home group and my sponsor, they just kind of talked about themselves and led me to the literature and let me diagnose myself as an alcoholic. And, that really made a difference in my life. It really made a difference in my life. So I try to remember that. Anyways, I remember reading the big book. She told me I got to go read the big book. And I remember thinking, how do these old guys know? How do they know me? How do they know, like, the way I drank? How do they know the tricks I tried? How do they know the way I felt? It was really neat. Anyway, she talked to me about being powerless, and she explained to me about the mental obsession, about the phenomenon of craving, and it made sense. Like, here it was, somebody else was putting words on the things that I had been struggling with for years. Of course I had that mental obsession, like always thinking about taking a drink. If I was sad, if I was angry, if I was happy, a drink was going to make it better. If I needed, if I was feeling self-pity, I was going to drink and wallow in that. Whatever, the drink was the answer for me. And when she talked to me about that phenomenon of craving, that made sense. That was why I didn't know what was going to happen. When I took a drink and said, I'm going to act like a lady tonight, I'm not going to get in trouble. Because of the phenomenon of craving, I can't predict what's going to happen next. And this was like awesome. It was awesome for me to know that. She talked to me about unmanageability, and, I was like, wait a minute, like, no, like, I'm in school, I have a job, and she started asking me questions about how I was feeling and about what my life was like. And, I remember thinking, if I got, like, my family, my boyfriend, my friends, the people from work, the people from school together, and if they all talked about Rachel, they would all be talking about somebody different. And that was kind of helpful for me. On the inside, I was falling apart all over the place. So I understood, I understood the idea of being powerless and being unmanageable. When we got to the second step, I was kind of offended that she was implying that I was insane. But when she talked to me about the insanity of the first drink, I couldn't deny it. That happened the first night that I drank with my friend Chris. That happened the first night, and it happened over and over again after that. Every single time I went to jail, every time I got into a fight with my boyfriend, always, like, I was gonna stop. And then that, the strange mental blank spots would happen. This time it's going to be different. So I understood that word of insanity of the first drink. She also tried to talk to me, about like the general insanity of my life, and there really wasn't any arguing that either. When we got to the third step, there was kind of, I guess, some resistance. When I got here, I was really thankful for things like the gift of desperation, good orderly directions, and a group of drunks. That's really where my higher power started. My mom and she never talked to me about God when I was growing up. I gave you guys my drinking, but now you want me to give you like my life and my thinking. And I really wasn't willing to do that for two reasons. Like, number one, kind of like what it talks about in the 12 and 12, like, what would become of me? I would be the hole in the donut. I would have no personality. What about me? And then secondly, I'm sorry, but a group of drunks just wasn't sufficient, And, my sponsor and I, like, God, I guess I must have given her a hard time about it. Because finally I remember she was like, listen, all it is like a decision to try steps 4 through 9. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do that. No big deal. I'll try those steps. And, like, the difference today between the third step and then in the third step is huge. Then, yeah, I was willing to try AA. Now, like, gosh, I see the third step is like, if I have a problem today, chances are it's a third step problem. Chances are it's me trying to run the show. So it's me trying to impose my will on stuff. And, I can run full speed into a brick wall like a dozen times before I realize, oh, yeah, that's right. I turned my will and my life over to, like, a care of a higher power. I don't have to do this anymore. It usually doesn't take a dozen times today of running into a brick wall. But like I said, today, if I have a problem, chances are I'm trying to manage my life. And, after we said our third step prayer, my sponsor gave me, like, a huge stack of papers because that's the way she had been sponsored. And I was supposed to do my fourth step, and there was, like, I don't know, lots of check marks and circling and a little bit of writing and stuff like that. And I did it. I did everything that she had asked me to do, all these things that the paper said. And is that my phone? Oh, sorry. I really thought, like, I'm sorry. Anyways, like, when I went to do my fifth step, my sponsor had gotten a Habitat for Humanity house, and she had gotten a good job, she got married, and she had 5 kids, and all of them had come back to live with her, and those kids were loud. They were all boys. And I remember, like, she physically locked us in her bedroom, and she would yell, like, shut up, during my fifth step. And, I told it all to her, we talked about it, and I had used her, like, she already knew this stuff. And, I was was disappointed. I don't know. Like, I thought that something was going to happen. I thought, like the world was going to lift off my shoulders. The clouds were going to part. There would be some kind of like music. Like, I thought there was going to be something physical, and it didn't happen. And so I told her we did it wrong. We didn't do this 5th step right. Something's wrong. And she said, well, maybe you didn't do the 4th step right. And she said, maybe you need to do that again. And so, like, at this time, somebody had given me a set of tapes of 2 guys reading the big book. And they were going through the big book, and they, like, had this really novel idea that I had never thought of. They talked about doing your 4th step the way it says in the big book. And so I tried it, and it worked. Like, I did the best of my ability. I did it like they outlined. I wrote down the who and the what. I wrote down how it affects me, like what of my instincts does it affect? And then I looked at my part and I wrote that down, for all of it. And by the time I was ready to do my 5th step again, my sponsor, all those wonderful things that came back in her life, she didn't have time for AA anymore. And she eventually ended up going back out, and it got pretty ugly. So I had a different sponsor, and we were at a retreat at the beach, and I did my 5th step with her. And I'll tell you what, like, all that stuff happened. Like, the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders. It was dark, but I'm pretty sure the clouds were parting and all of it. I had told this woman everything, and she loved me. And not just the stuff that I had done, but the stuff that I felt and the stuff that I thought. And that was huge. I'm somebody who's always been afraid to let other people get to know me, because I'm certain that if you know me, you're not going to like me anymore. And what I'm learning is that that's not true. When I go ahead and tell you whatever it is that I'm afraid of you finding out, chances are you've got something similar as well. And an instant connection happens. And the truth is, what I'm learning even now, working with my sponsor now and working with sponsees, is that where that vulnerability is, where that really, really getting to know each other, letting someone get to know me, that's where God does work. And that's where I start to change. And so it's miraculous is what it is. So my sponsor sent me back to the hotel room, and she said, now you get your big book down and, read that stuff. Make sure you're not trying to make mortar without sand, and reflect and everything. And so I did. I spent an hour in reflection, and I knew we were on solid footing. And step 6 and step 7 are just the next 2 paragraphs, and they're really, really short, And I tell you, I'd spent hours talking about those character defects, and so I was entirely willing to have God remove them. And so I went ahead and read that 7th step prayer, and I expected to wake up the next morning and that they would be gone, and they weren't. What I'm learning today about step 6 and step 7 is, like, they're awesome. They're awesome steps. They're really good for me to, like, read about and to think about. Like, they're really good in theory. But when it comes to practicing step 6 and step 7, they're a lot harder, but they're a lot meaningful. For me, that becoming willing to have God remove those defects of character, it was it was important that night after my 5th step, but where it really counts, where the rubber hits the road, it's today when I'm doing, like, my 10th steps. It's today in my life. Am I willing to let God take away these defects of character? Because I know without a shadow of a doubt, if I become entirely willing, God can remove those from me. I have to quit practicing them, but God will remove those from me. And I find that, immense character change can happen when I can let go of whatever fear I have, that character change can happen. And it's like funny. It's like in the big book, they're just really short, but when we get to the 12 and 12, all of a sudden these are, it's the steps that separates from the men from the boys. It becomes much more important there, and that's how it is in my life. That night it was important, but now, it's really important for me to have that willingness. And I can totally identify with what Bill's writes in the 12 and 12. The difference between the men and the boys is the difference between God's objective, which is perfect, and that's what I should aim for, or my objective of just enough perfection as will get me by, And sometimes it steps on my toes a little bit. Anyways, when I think about the amends steps 8 and steps 9, I think about my family. I always think about my grandma and grandpa. I can't get this picture out of my head. I was probably 15 years old, and I've got, I don't know, like weird clothes on. I've got a ring in my nose. I've got this like lunchbox for a purse, and I've got spiky hair all over the place. And I have the nastiest look on my face, just nasty. And we're at Disney World. And, I didn't want to be there, and I didn't want to be with those people, and I wasn't, I wasn't happy. And all my grandparents ever wanted to do was just be grandma and grandpa. They just wanted to love me, and I wouldn't let them. And, today, like, I get to let my grandma and grandpa be, I get to let them love me. I get to be a granddaughter today. My grandpa likes to watch old movies and to play cards. And so when we go and visit, that's what we do. My grandma, she likes to go shopping, and I usually carry her purse, and she holds my hand, and then we go shopping. She's recently had a stroke, and I'm thankful that I got to go and visit her, and she was afraid. She was in the hospital, and she was scared. She didn't know where she was. She thought people were trying to break into her house, and I got to tell her it's okay, and that I'm here with you, and you don't have to be afraid. And that's like a complete role reversal, but I'm so thankful I got to do that. And, my mom, the warden, the root of all my problems. Today, my mom and I have a really good relationship. We talk on the phone a lot. She doesn't live here right now. We talk on the phone a lot, and when she is here, we get to visit. And I get to be me today with her. Like, gosh, I used to feel like I didn't, I had to act a certain way around my mom. And today I get to be like the real Rachel with her. And that's awesome. It's such a good feeling. And I think about my dad. I didn't know that I had resentments towards my dad. My husband kind of pointed out several years ago that, Rachel, when your dad calls, your voice changes and you get really short and really stern. And I just didn't realize that. I'm thankful that today, like, he hasn't changed. He still, like, drives me crazy. In fact, the other day we were on the phone and I said, listen, Dad, I need to go. I'm going to call you back in about 10 minutes, like that voice was coming up, and so he's not different. And that's okay. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's like the way he is. It doesn't matter if he returns phone calls. It doesn't matter if he says is going to come to visit and he doesn't show up. Like, that doesn't matter. What matters is if I'm being the daughter that I feel like I should be. Am I returning phone calls? What's my tone of voice when I'm talking to him? Am I sending the cards? Things like that. And there's a lot of freedom in that, And today I can tell him that I love him and I can call him Dad. And that's just really, really cool. Those relationships have been restored because of you guys, because of, making a direct amends and also changing the way I live. And today I'm someone who, at least I'm trying to have integrity. And I'm really thankful because that's what you expect from me. And that's what my sponsor expects from me too. I have to be honest. There's sometimes where I choose to do something or to not to do something because I know I'm going to tell my sponsor about it. And I can't lie to her. Like, I can't. I've kind of tried, and it didn't work, The person who I have for a sponsor today, like, I did not want her to be my sponsor. She seems so like, it's right or it's wrong, it's black or it's white. In reality, she's not, but she's tough, she's stern. And I'd been sitting on a nail for a long time. I had, I know what I did. I had a commitment and I didn't keep it, okay? And then I lied about it a lot. I lied about it a lot. And I assure you, this was like a good 6 years ago, okay? But anyways, like, I thought, like, this was a AA commitment. And so in my heart, like, I felt like I had sinned against AA. And I couldn't tell anybody about it ever. And it was the worst thing that you could do. And I had done it in AA to AA. And, like, a couple months had gone by, and, like, I didn't drink, but I could see, like, this secret was standing in the way of, like, everything. Certain topics would come up in meetings, and I'd get really uncomfortable, and I'd have to get up. And certain people would bring things up, and I'd get nervous, And I remember, like I said, I was desperate. Like, I invited this woman out for coffee, and I don't drink coffee. But, like, I needed a different sponsor. I needed to have someone who's going to take me through the steps, to continue that. And I told her, and I didn't want to tell her. like, I really didn't want to tell her. And I remember it was like coming out, and I'm like, no, come back. And she gave me a high five. And she told me, Rachel, you don't ever have to keep secrets again. You don't ever have to do that again. And another thing was going on. We have a pretty smallish home group, and these women in my home group, these 3 women, they just didn't like me, and it was really bothering me. And I remember telling her, and she's like, you're right, they don't. Get over it. You know? And like, I am so thankful that, you know, my sponsor cares enough about me that she's willing to hurt my little feelings from time to time. You know, I'm so thankful. And this sponsor that I have, she is a firm believer in a 10th step. And I have struggled with consistency. I've struggled with discipline to do these 10th steps. But she's helped me. Like, she really has helped me to be consistent. Like, I don't get to call and whine. I don't get to call and like talk about blah, 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 blah. She'll say, did you write this down? Did you put it on paper? I'll call you back. You know? And like, I mean, this is where change is happening for me. Like, doing my 10th step, doing my inventory. This is where step 6 and step 7 happen, because like, it's in the now. Like, right now, can I be honest with my husband? Like, that's huge. And I'm learning that I can. Right now, can I tell this person in my home group that I really think that that's inappropriate for you to say at an AA meeting? Like, right now, this is where I grow up, you know, where I learn who I am, you know, whether I'm dishonest, I'm selfish, I'm self-centered, I'm inconsiderate, I'm fearful, I'm all of that, you know. But today I'm learning, like, I'm human, you know? Like, I'm human, and it's okay. And I can take these things to my higher power, and my character changes. And another thing that the 10th step helps me is it helps me to live in today. You know, I don't have to have my brain all, like, worked up and feeling bad about the stuff that happened in the past. And I don't have to be afraid of what's going to happen in the future, because I can write it down. I can put it on paper. I can stop the rat race that's in my head. I can take it to my higher power, and I can start to change. And there's a lot of freedom in that. So anyways, okay, I'm sorry, our clocks aren't matching up. When I got here, I told you that I was, I thought of things like good orderly direction in a group of drunks. And today I have a relationship with a higher power. And I'm thankful that you let me take responsibility for what I believe, and that I don't have to believe what my sponsor believes. I don't have to believe what my mom or my husband believes, that I can believe what I want. And it's based on experience. And, you know, when I was growing up, like, I don't know, we never talked about God. And I had, like, in high school, I got sent to the principal's office for casting a spell on someone, and because I had a voodoo doll. And it wasn't. It was like one of those kneadable erasers. But, like, that kept people at bay, and it kept people away from me. And when I got here, though, let me back up. When I was in jail, the first time and the second time, there was a woman who was there, and she ended up being convicted of murdering a 14-year-old girl. And that woman told me, Rachel, God isn't going to put anything on you that you can't handle. And today I look at that and I realize for me, that's kind of still a very selfish way to look at my relationship with my higher power. But it was a start, you know. God used her, and that was a start. And, you know, later that was like, oh, Rachel, but God won't put anything on you that you and he can't handle together, because, you know, God needs my help handling things. And finally somebody told me, and I heard, you know, Rachel, God doesn't put anything on me. He pulls me through stuff. And that kind of made sense for me. And I've always had, at least in AA, I've always had, you know, a belief in my head, but not necessarily this faith in my heart. And that's a long way. And I, you know, I just trusted, you know, I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other. I'm going to do this AA stuff. I'm going to do what you tell me to do. And, you know, it's going to happen. Things are going to happen. And, you know, I'll tell you that shift has happened from my head to my heart. I remember going through student teaching, which was horrible. It was awful. Like, everybody was a cheerleader and their daddy bought them Lexuses. And, it was just difficult. And I had to pray every day, and I really had to trust my higher power. A few years ago, my husband first went on second shift, and our lives turned upside down. Like, his home group was in the evening. He took a meeting into the prison in the evening. He met with his sponsees in the evening. And when he went on second shift, like I said, turned our world upside down. He was laid off, and like, I went out and bought tons of canned food. Oh God. talking? Okay. 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 So, yes. So my sponsor, she said, in these situations, she said that, Rachel, either God is everything or he is nothing. Either God is everything or he is nothing, and you get to decide. And so that means, like, on a day-to-day basis, like, I had to choose, is God everything or is he nothing? And today I know without a shadow of a doubt that God is everything, and it operates in my life that way. And my friend showed me in early sobriety in the penny, it says, in God we trust, liberty. And that means a lot to me. You know, I'm someone who was always trying to live, was always running to something that I thought was going to make me feel good, or running away from what I thought was going to hurt me. And there was never enough. There was never enough, like, people telling me I was pretty, I was smart. There was never enough stuff, never enough shoes, you know, whatever. And today I find when I'm living in a way that I'm trying to be pleasing to my higher power, and I'm trusting in my higher power, there's always enough. There's always abundance. And that's an awesome thing. I have a full and wonderful life, and it's because of you guys here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm learning that I can practice what we learn here in AA, not just here in AA. I can practice it with my family. I can practice it with my husband. I can take it to my job, you know, and that's an awesome thing. I get to share, because of you guys, I get to share this message with sponsees, and I get to see light bulbs go off in their head. Yeah. And I get to see their lives start to change, and that's such a blessing. I'll just take a second, and Greg alluded to, you know, today I get to serve as our Area 51 alternate delegate, and it's totally okay if that doesn't mean anything to you, like, completely. Like, in Alcoholics Anonymous, we're an upside-down triangle where the groups are in charge, and I get to serve kind of like in the middle. Like, I get to serve the groups, and what I get to do is I get to learn about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I get to follow people around who, like, well, they probably don't know everything, but they seem like they know everything. And I just get to learn, and it's an awesome thing. And I'm learning about, making sure, you know, that I am responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out. I want the hand of AA to be there. Like, just because you're in prison doesn't mean you shouldn't get AA. Just because you're deaf doesn't mean you shouldn't get AA. Just because you speak a different language, just because you're in, like, Yemen doesn't mean you shouldn't get AA. And that's kind of part of what general service does, kind of make sure the hand of AA is there no matter what. And that's just an awesome thing. I think it's time for me to close. I do appreciate being here on Dr. Bob's birthday, which is really cool. Thank you.